We find ourselves right in the midst of a 5-part preaching series, so we're coming towards the end, coming down the hill a little bit. And so I want to recap where we've been, and then at the end, where we're going. This is all about a Christian conception of what it means to be human. The first week I preached on what it means to be created, both body and soul, not body in soul, not soul in body, not computer in machine, but body and soul, created and together, and male and female. The next week I discussed and preached on the fundamental questions that arise in each person's heart. Some would call those the religious questions. Who am I? Where am I going? How has this all come to be? Last week I preached on how these fundamental questions arise, that is, from our senses, and then using our reason to try to understand the world better. And as we continue this question of our reason and looking at the world, we begin to realize that our created nature, that's our creatureliness, has a goal in mind. And just like Aristotle would say about a good racehorse being the racehorse that races well, the good human means to be the most human a human could be. I know that sounds a little tautologous, but let me try to explain that. We start recognizing that there are habits that we have that really make the human being be more human as opposed to less. These good habits that are truly human, the church has adopted the term virtue. Now, I know when we think of virtue, we might have some kind of nebulous ideas for what that means, but again, I want to break these down a little bit. There are two aspects, or two different types of virtues that are talked about. There's the intellectual, not academia, but using your noggin, in a sense, and the moral. The intellectual virtues give us the ability, in a sense, to attain what is more real in the world, and the moral are those that help you actually live them out. To put it very concretely, and since I'm Italian, my analogies always go back to eating food, intellectual virtue allows you to recognize that you shouldn't eat your weight in chocolate. And the moral virtues help me to regulate my appetite so I don't sneak down in the middle of the night and eat my weight in chocolate. If you're looking for a best place to find these laid out a little bit, I encourage you to go read the Catechism's definitions starting at paragraph 1803 and following. Kids especially, I encourage you to look these up, maybe look them up in your little yellow UCAT that the parish has been handing out. And start putting those words up on your walls, not success, feel good. Of course, this is hard, especially in America, because when we think of temperance, we don't necessarily think of the virtue, we think of a movement that we as Catholics had to try to find ways to get around so we could have wine for the Blessed Sacrament. And the Irish being the Irish and the Italians being the Italians, we imported a lot of good wine. There are some other spirits too. Start asking yourself, though, kids, about those virtues. Don't think to yourself, did I get an A on this test? Therefore, I did a good job. Ask yourself, did I study well enough to get the grade that I was seeking? In whenever I have the school kids here, I pick on Mr. Boyd a lot, the middle school math teacher, because I wasn't really good at math, ever. And so instead of the kids asking themselves, did I get an A, therefore I did a good job, I had to start asking myself, did I study hard enough for that test to get the grade that I was seeking? And let me tell you, I had to study a lot harder than all of my friends who were tutoring me in the math class. This understanding of virtue, or those goodly human habits that help the human to be the best human being the human could be, is always affected, though, by sin. Let's go back to the first reading for a second. This is the Word of God. All of life is a drudgery. Are not all of his days those of hirelings? My life is like the wind. I shall not see happiness again. Did we catch that? And then the reader said, the word of the Lord. These fundamental questions that start arising in the heart start making us realize that things aren't the way they should be in all aspects of life. Sin affects everything. Every aspect of our soul, where our virtue resides, is affected. And sometimes it makes me think that this or that good is the good. This comes about both in the intellectual and the moral realm, where sometimes in ignorance we believe that sex or power or pleasure or money is the highest good. Or that, as Paul says, the spirit wars against the flesh. Remember where he says, I do what I don't want to do. Even though I know I shouldn't eat my weight in chocolate in the middle of the night. Sometimes my growth in moral virtues haven't quite lived up to the spirit. And this is all very particular to each and every one of us, but not relative. See, classically, all virtues exist between two vices. So courage, for example, the doing the right thing in a hard situation, has the vice of foolhardiness on one side, and the vice of cowardice on the other. And again, being Italian, I'm going to go back to food. If you've ever had children, or you have some teenage boys in the house, you know that they can eat more than an elephant. But if my 93-year-old grandfather tried to eat as much as I have seen some teenage boys eat, it would not be good. Or another example, I had a friend in high school. She swam twice a day, and her snack every day was an entire box of Wheat Thins. That was the snack. If I did that at any age in my life, I would have gained quite a bit of weight. These human being habits that help the human being be the best human being the human could be. These virtues in the intellectual realm of understanding and science and wisdom and art and prudence. And these all have very technical definitions, not in the way that they're kind of thrown out there today, since, for example, science in its broadest is about knowing what's really real, and art is about being able to create. This is craftsmanship. Or the moral virtues of justice and temperance and fortitude, with prudence being the queen of the virtues, because it's about the right application of all of them. And why do I give all these distinctions? I think it's because it's helpful that we can say that someone might be a good doctor even if they don't quite live up to the good knowledge that they have received in their own life. If you've ever read the book Catcher in the Rye by Holden Caulfield, This is why we don't run around calling people phonies, because sometimes the virtue that they have isn't fully formed in one area versus another. And that doesn't make them a phony, it makes them human. This distinction has also helped me understand the difference between what we would say someone living a good life and someone who lives a Catholic life. In that, as human beings are understanding the world, sometimes we don't live up to what we've understood to be true or has been revealed to us. Looking now at the gospel, I want to understand and describe a little more fully this encounter with Jesus and Simon's mother-in-law, which I have no doubts was a true encounter and actually did happen, because let's be honest, when's the last time you heard something nice about a mother-in-law? So here is this woman. This woman is sick, not doing well. This is all of humanity. Not dead. Maybe having even gone in some good directions, growing in natural virtues. Trying really hard, sick with a fever, the body trying really hard to rid that which is evil. And honestly, because all of us always pursue what we perceive to be the good. Have you ever heard the term righteous pagans? Doing good, but not all the way. And so here's this woman, here's our humanity sick, lying sick, and in comes Christ. Christ, who is the desire of every human heart, the revealer of our humanity to itself, the new Adam, who reveals and gives birth to a new bride, the church. Christ reaches out, lifts her up, and heals that humanity. And what's the first thing that Simon's mother-in-law does? Serves Christ. Now that her humanity is ordered towards its true goal, it can be realized in serving Jesus, glorifying God and being with him forever in communion. Jesus says to us, "See, I am doing something new. Can't you see that?" This newness isn't a destruction of what went before, but a fulfillment. These natural virtues then are oriented in a different way, oriented in a new way, a fulfilled way, one that we couldn't comprehend beforehand because it needed revelation. It brings something new into the question. And that newness that Christ brings, I will cover next Sunday on Valentine's Day in this final section in 5-part series. This newness, which as Catholics we call charity.